Well, pretty much it's all good news. I know this is not, good news. What is today? Tuesday, because it's not time for that show yet. That's later today. But I don't know. I couldn't find really any bad news to report to you. We've got the Larry's puppy is on the mend. For those of you who watched last night, YouTube made a huge admission. We will get to that in a minute. That's incredible. Business couldn't, I mean, it's just amazing. We'll get to that story. And then Tesla's stock is about to go crazy. Just, it's just like, it's just the pressure is building at 440. And it's just a matter of when that's going to crash through and begin to go to all-time highs. I know I was early, but it's going to happen. It's just a matter of which day. And a probable day would be October 2nd. I'm still believing that it's going to be hard to get through. Now, remember, the caveat to that is a very big piece of news, not just these upgrades, although we'll talk about more upgrades this morning too. It's going to take, I think it's going to take some news like something happening at Austin, something happening in San Francisco, some major breakthrough with the robotaxi thing to get us through 440 before October 2nd. Now, it could happen, it just could happen from FOMO or from kind of the general, attitude about business. But we'll see. We'll see. That's just my current take. Now, my favorite technical analyst I haven't seen him publishing much in a week or so, but this morning, he chimes in today. Now, when I say favorite technical analysts, please, Brian Wang and Nicholas Gibbs do not make any claims to be technical analysts. They only report on some technical issues way better than I do. So, I just have my little kind of mini technical thing that I do. So macro to micro, the number two, macro, and the last thing is a number O instead of a letter O, making it extremely complicated to try to remember. His thing is clever, but anyway, he says Tesla stock is getting ready to have its highest weekly close in its history. This is with the weekly RSI only starting to enter overbought territory. As you can see from the historical, well, you can't because I'm not putting up the chart. It can get a lot higher. You can go look it up. It can go a lot higher for a lot longer. Actually, he doesn't put those lots in there. My next target is at the 750 range. 750. But based on fundamentals, exchange rates improving drastically over the last several months from a falling dollar, and the old saying, the longer the base, the stronger the breakout, I would expect that we will be going into the 900 range at some point next year, especially if robotaxi is really taking off and we're getting our first glimpse of Optimus in action. I know that's why I like him, is because he reads my stuff and then he just repeats it. I'm kidding. So he has independently come to the conclusion that we will be hitting 750 soon. I think that was my number for the balance of this year without a significant robotaxi effort, something really big, like 500 vehicles without safety drivers. So 750 is about where I think we'll be at the end of the year. It could be 1,000 if we get the robotaxi action and if we get, some Optimus sightings. But he says 900 next year. And that's possible in my analysis. My analysis says, yeah, we could be 900 next year. It could be 1,000 next year. It could be, February, March, April. We finally get there because the robotaxi thing is just not popping as fast as expected. He ends with this. He says, remember, I've been almost perfect with Tesla price action over the last 5 years. Well, I don't know. I've been following him for 5 years, but if he says so, okay. Well, then Dan Ives, who's my favorite kind of, well, it's everybody's favorite, right, Dan Ives? He's our favorite kind of regular news kind of guy. Institutional investors who miss Tesla, listen to this now, institutional investors who miss Tesla going from 350 to 650 will be working on their resumes. Waymo can't scale, so they're not going to be in the game. Musk is more focused now, and it reminds him of the Elon of 2013. Elon understands why it's so important right now to be focused. So because of the race to get to AGI, now that was all paraphrasing. That wasn't a direct quote. But anyway, yes, institutional investors who missed Tesla going from 350 to 650 will be so stupid, they'll be so ignorant, their bosses will be so mad that those folks will be looking for a job. That's what, I didn't say it. That's Dan Ives. Sawyer Merritt says this morning, he says 17,000, well, actually it was last night, 17,300 new Teslas were insured in China last week. That's the best week of Q3 2025 so far, and up 13% compared to last week. And out of that, Model YLs was still only 850 units. So a lot of room for Model YL to grow. Brian Wang believes that Model YL should be up at around 5,000 units a week. That's his hope. That's his goal. But in any case, 17,300 per week. Okay, that's not the all-time high. It's not even close, but it's really getting up there. If you multiply that times 52, you get you get 800, like a little over 800,000, 800, 900,000. And of course, we believe that plant is capable of doing 1 million plus, maybe 1 million, 1 million, 2 million, 3. So a lot of room to grow. Grok says this. I asked Grok. No, I didn't ask Grok. Somebody else asked Grok. They said, "Hey, what's your number for Tesla for the third quarter in terms of units?" 475,000. Randy is at 480 to 510. Gary Black this morning said he's at 475. UBS came in yesterday with 475. But they think that Q4 will drop down to 435. I don't think that's going to happen. But so a lot of people at 475, that range right now seems to be kind of the consensus, although some people are over 500. Again, I think it's possible that we could go over 500. Mizuho analyst Vijay, I don't know, Rakesh, has increased his Tesla price target to $450 from $375 and maintained an outperform rating. The price target increase for Tesla reflects growing confidence backed by a 55.8 success rate. That's their success rate. 18.9 average return rating from TipRanks. Tesla's recent execution improvements is what he's citing. His bull case, though, is 515 to 681. I don't know. Everybody seems to be coming together on this much higher level analysis. This adjustment contrasts with the broader analyst consensus of 321 and highlights Rakesh's outlier bullish stance, possibly influenced by Tesla's advancements in AI and robotics, areas with potential multi-trillion-dollar market caps, as noted in Seeking Alpha's 2025 analysis. So this is what Grok has to say about that particular increase in expectations. Yes, there is an analyst note from Mizuho accompanying Vijay's rakish price target increase. The note highlights growing confidence in Tesla's trajectory, citing recent execution improvements and advancements in AI and robotics. This is Randy Kirk. See, it's all good news. It's just more and more and more good news. But we're not done yet. There's more good news. YouTube now admits, for the very first time, that the Biden administration pressured them to remove content. They're changing their policies. They are inviting content providers to come back who were banned in the past. They also had this to say about the European Union, and this is according to Jim Jordan. YouTube warns that Europe could force companies to remove lawful social media content and could risk freedom of expression within and outside the European Union. That's right. Europe wants to censor your online speech, even if you aren't in Europe. Are you ready for that? Okay, so this is why Trump and J.D. Vance are all over Europe with regard to these changes that they want to make in the way that they look at all content on the social media. But now we have everybody agreeing that the autocrat is not Trump. The autocrat was no other than Joseph Biden. Further, okay, this is the S&P report. This is pretty incredible, so hang in there. This is long, but you want to hear every word of it. Further robust growth of output in September rounds off the best quarter so far this year for U.S. business. PMI survey data are consistent with the economy expanding at 2.2% annualized rate in the third quarter. Who knew? However, the monthly profile is one of growth having slowed from its recent peak back in July and September. And September saw companies also pulling back on their hiring. Softening demand conditions are also becoming more widely reported, curbing pricing power. They're not able to raise their prices. Although tariffs were cited as a driver of higher input costs across both manufacturing and services, the number of companies able to hike selling prices to pass these costs on to customers has fallen, hinting at squeezed margins, but boding well for inflation to moderate. I don't know. I told you it's all good news. The survey data are nevertheless still indicative of consumer inflation remaining above the central bank's 2% target in the coming months. However, in manufacturing, there are also signs that disappointing sales growth has caused inventories to accumulate at an unprecedented rate, which could also further help soften inflation in the coming months. So manufacturing slowing a bit, but we'll get into more details on that. I'm not sure his conclusions are correct. The inventory buildup, of course, hints of some downside risk to future production, while growth growth expectations across both manufacturing and services also continue to be dogged by concerns over the political environment and especially tariffs. September encouragingly saw business sentiment improve, in part due to anticipated beneficial impact of lower interest rates. The last remaining shoe that needed to drop. Tariffs, that's me. Tariffs were again overwhelmingly cited as a principal cause of further cost increases in September, most evidently in the manufacturing sector. Manufacturing input price inflation remained elevated as one of the highest rates since the pandemic, albeit dipping slightly since August. Service sector inflation, meanwhile, hit the second highest recorded over the past 27 months, although overall input cost inflation consequently accelerated to its highest rate in May, and therefore the second highest for just over 2.5 years. So the inflation thing is still, they're saying it's still there. Now remember, these are surveys. This is not hard data. It's all surveys. Firms across both manufacturing and services often reported difficulties passing these higher costs on. Goods price inflation cooled especially sharply, down to the lowest point since January. Whilst selling prices in the service sector rose at the weakest rate since April. Looking ahead, companies' expectations about output in the year ahead improved to a 4-month high in September, yet remained below the survey's long-range averages. Survey sector's sentiment picked up to the highest level since May. Everybody's excited. Output concerns in manufacturing continue to center on government policies and broader political uncertainty, though in manufacturing, tariffs were again cited as hopefully providing a stimulus to domestic production. Both sectors saw business confidence improve. The S&P Global U.S. Manufacturing PMI fell from 53 to 52, according to the flash reading, signaling an improvement of factory business conditions for the 8th time in the last 9 months. But the rate of improvement slightly slower. Production rose for the 4th consecutive month, albeit to a lesser degree, while new orders... But see, this time he didn't say whilst. This time he says while. While new orders rose for the 9th straight month, the increase was only marginal. Factory employment growth also edged lower, with a weekly gain in input inventories likely weighing on the headline PMI. So we got a little bit of a slowdown, according to these surveys, at least a little slowdown on hiring. So we've seen a little bit of that, which is why we're getting lower interest rates. All right, so according to Truflation, the overnight is 2.15% inflation. The year over year is at 1.85%, and the PCE equivalent has dropped to 2.49%. That's counting inflation, I'm sorry, that's counting tariffs. So if you take out the tariffs, we're probably at 2%. The president of the United States has an appreciation rate of 50% overnight, and the Atlanta Fed is still at 3.3. The next change will be on Friday. So I will be reporting that 3.3 every morning just to keep you. Now, remember, they said 2.2, the S&P thing was at 2.2. And so 2.2, 3.3, I'll take either one if that is what we're going to get for the third quarter. All right, we've got Tesla this morning bouncing off 440 again in the overnights, down now at 433.26. We will all take it. Every one of us will be happy with that. So we're actually, if that's actually down compared to last night's close, 0.22%. The NASDAQ is also down exactly by 2.24%. S&P is down 0.01%. I would call that flat. And the Dow is up 0.47. Now, it's not shocking to have a little bit of flatness this morning, maybe even a little sadness over this really strong S&P survey report, because, they might worry. What would they worry about? There was no inflation there. I don't know, but we're flat, probably going into PCE on Friday, because that's all the news we got to look at right now. All right, we've got the Magnificent Seven completely mixed. NVIDIA pulling back from those giant gains yesterday, but Meta and Apple slightly up, very slightly up. Overall, a little bit of a pullback today, I would say. But again, Tesla is staying strong at 433.61. Cathie Woods are mixed, but mostly up this morning because why? Yes, it's true. I did look ahead. I already know we do have bonds going down this morning, and that's all changed now since last time I looked. We're now 𝐬𝐚𝐚𝐢𝐥 at 4.145, staying under 4.15. Listen to Randy. I've been right, like so much. It's Friday, Monday, Tuesday. I don't know what you're going to, it's going to change. It'll change. I'll be wrong, completely wrong tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday. So watch out for that. All right. So unchanged right now, 4.145. We're not going over 4.15. Okay. That's my promise. It's my promise. Oil up a buck this morning. An Iraq Kurdish pipeline restart. No idea what that means, but that's the headline. 63.40, that's fine. Natural gas up 0.68, still well under $3 at 2.83. Gold hitting another record high, busting over 3,800, up 26 for the day. Silver probably also very near, if not at an all-time high, up 0.47%. Copper barely, call it unchanged at $4.58. I really expect that to continue to go up from there. We have got the dollar mixed, of course. Bitcoin up 521 at 112. Ether at up 0.94. So after that big drop yesterday, up 0.92. And there you go. That is the whole list. Later on today, it will be all mixed up this week. Completely mixed up because somebody's having a baby. That would be Nicholas Gibbs. Maybe today. We have got Bradford Ferguson coming in, and that'll be an early report. Put it out somewhere around 3:15, 3:20, something like that. Then later on tonight, it'll be Brian Wang. Yeah. So Brian Wang will be giving us a big update because we haven't heard from him since last Friday, I think. Maybe even Thursday. So it's Brian's got a lot to tell us tonight, so don't miss that for sure. Last night we had Brian White on, and of course Larry Goldberg was on with me last night. I'm going to point to you. Most of you already saw the Larry Goldberg, so I'm going to point to the Brian White video to go back and check that out. We're looking at the questions that might be asked coming up here a month from now at the call. And we're trying to look through those. And Brian does a great job of kind of getting inside, his inside knowledge and answering my very astute questions. Yes, very astute. Let's take one last look at Tesla to see if it has bounced off those lows. of the day. Yes, it has. It has bounced off those lows of the day back to 434 and in positive, in green territory by 0.03%. I'd call that pretty close to unchanged. All right. It's been great talking to you.